Testing is done, the 2025 F1 season is right around the corner, which means it is time to draft a top 10 of where all teams currently stand at the start of the season. In today's GPFans Special, we will do exactly that based on onboard footage, quote from the teams themselves, and consensus in the media. Before we start though, if you like content like this, please remember to hit the subscribe button down below. That way you stay up to date on everything in the world of F1. Now let's start counting down. Unfortunately, it looks like Sauber are still the slowest team on the grid in 2025. It is the final year before the side transitions into an Audi works team next season, and despite a strong end to 2024, all signs point to the Sauber being the slowest car on the grid again. Not only were they the slowest in terms of the quickest laps they set in testing, but the race pace was not there in long runs either, and the car looks the trickiest to drive by far, judging from onboard footage. Another tough year is ahead. If this ranking were based on liveries, Racing Bulls would be running away with it, but the car's performance has dropped off compared to last year. Yuki Tsunoda confirmed that the team is in a weaker position now than last year compared to its rivals, and he does not expect to score any points at the start of the season. The race pace wasn't a mile off the midfield, but there are a lot of improvements to be made. Just like in 2024's testing, Haas have focused on heavier setups that emulate races, making it hard to judge where the American team stands in its 10th F1 season. The car seems to be at the back of the midfield, whereas at the end of 2024 it was often the 5th best car on the grid. While the car struggled with low-speed understeer in testing, it also showed very little tire degradation in the longer runs, the same formula for success at the end of 24. Absolutely the most disappointing team in testing was Aston Martin. The team has repeatedly said it is focusing on 2026, and they have just undergone massive restructuring in their management, but they were massively subpar in testing. While Lance Stroll's illness did disrupt things, the car looked unstable in the corners, and all signs point to the team being at the back of the midfield, the same place where it ended last season. Fernando Alonso too knows the start of the year will be tough. It's a complicated situation for everyone, so I've tried to be more relaxed, not just because of my feelings in the car. I think we have reached a point in the development of the car where it is quite complicated to add downforce without adding any difficulty to the driving of the car. There are two teams clearly at the top of midfield, and we start with Williams in number 6. Carlos Sainz set the quickest time of the test on day 2, and while this does not mean the car is a contender, it has made a big leap from last year. The long-run pace looks very good compared to the other midfield teams, and the car ran consistently as well, apart from the occasional lockup. With Carlos Sainz now in the mix, Williams should be in the mix to be the 5th best team on the grid. Our pick to lead the midfield, at least for the start of the year, is Alpine. Jack Doohan and Pierre Gasly were both very happy with how the new car behaves, although there was a significant difference in race pace between Gasly and the rookie Doohan. This could prove to be the key in the fight for best of the rest, with Williams as the Grove-based team have two consistent and proven drivers in the car. Overall though, the Alpine looks planted from the onboard footage, and the pace is only about 6/10 of the leaders on the grid. An unbelievable turnaround from the start of last year when the car seemed a nightmare to drive and was massively overweight. Well done Alpine, if I had a hat, I would tip it. Numbers 2, 3 and 4 are very hard to predict as they seem extremely close, but as we have to choose, we've put Mercedes in 4th. The word solid comes to mind when looking at Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli and George Russell pumped in the laps without any setbacks or issues, and the car looked rapid at times in the longer runs. The big caveat is that the Mercedes was at its best last year as well in cooler conditions, which was very much the case in Bahrain. The pace in testing was 2nd or 3rd best, but we think this is slightly dropping off once we get going at the hotter tracks. Expectations are sky high for Ferrari this year as they came close to winning the Constructors' title last year and have added 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton since then. However, their pace in Bahrain was, well, unimpressive. At its best, it looks brilliant, but occasionally the SF25 suffered from understeer, other times oversteer, and tire deg seemed a problem as well. Ultimately, the test was a slightly disappointing one from Ferrari. However, there are some real suspicions about Ferrari running in lower engine modes, as both Hamilton and Leclerc lost a lot of time on the straights. We'll have to see come Melbourne, but the ultimate Ferrari verdict for now is no big issues, but our socks weren't blown off either. Red Bull is another team that's hard to pin down, as the pace was vastly different between Liam Lawson and four-time reigning champion Max Verstappen. When we zoom out and look at the quotes, they are largely positive from Red Bull's camp. Team advisor Dr. Helmut Marko said that last year's issues have been largely fixed, and Verstappen too was largely happy with his new car. Technical director Pierre Vacher wasn't as optimistic. I am not as happy as I could be because the car did not respond how we wanted at times, but it is going in the right direction. Just maybe the magnitude of the direction was not as big as we expected, and it's something we need to work on. On Friday, Red Bull fitted a new front wing and floor, but the new floor was taken off as it did not show the desired result. In the last 2 hours of testing, Verstappen's car had Flovis painted on it, a clear sign that Red Bull are still looking for answers. Overall pace from testing indicates the following. In the hands of Verstappen, the Red Bull is the second best car, and in the hands of Lawson, who was 7/10 of Lando Norris in his race sim, it is quite a bit slower. But it is also the team who can make the biggest jump in the top four. The clear pace setter for 2025, at least at the start of the year, is McLaren. According to motorsport.com, the reigning champions could be anywhere between 2 and 5/10 clear of the field, and particularly Lando Norris made a big impression on Thursday in his longer runs. Norris was still not entirely happy, stating he struggles more with the rear of the car than he would like, but team principal Andrea Stella suggested this was a setup choice for Bahrain specifically. Anyway, the consensus amongst team and in the media is that McLaren are the best team on the grid, but not by as big a margin as Red Bull in recent years. The MCL 39 does not stand out in one characteristic, but rather is just very good and silky smooth on all fronts. They'll still have a big fight on their hands if they want to retain their title, make no mistake about it, but McLaren will be the favorites when we get to Australia. Well, that brings us to the end of our top 10 of where all teams currently stand on the F1 grid. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment down below with what you saw in Bahrain. We can't wait to see what you think of all of this. Anyway, this was today's GPFans Special. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next one.